those of you who've been here since day one, you'll know that my content creation actually began with Twitch. Since my YouTube channel has grown over the years, it's become more of a general long-form content channel where I cover a bunch of different media types and themes, and in the wake of that, I kinda left my Twitch streaming behind, but I've really missed it. And most importantly, I've missed shagging games. Like, I like to get all the achievements, I like to completely finish things. So I made a new channel. If you originally subbed for video game content and find yourself disappointed that it's less of what I post now, go and check out the new channel and drop a sub. My brother and I will be posting many videos just like this one, and I'll also be moving my rankings over there in the future. Our first video on the channel will be our attempts at the Outlast 100%, which saw us crawling through corridors in a survival horror bonanza with one life on the hardest difficulty. So today, let's ping two girls with one cup. In the style pioneered by YouTube legend Adam McDermott, let's try a different format of video today. Let's document the highs and the lows of Elden Ring. Sorry Adam, I won't steal any more of your script. Back in April of 2023, we embarked on the Elden Ring weekend. The Elden Ring weekend focused on trying to complete every achievement in Elden Ring in a single weekend. As many players will be aware, that's not an impossible challenge, but it would require an efficient approach to bosses, builds, and level traversal. We'd already finished the game on stream before with a no co-op outside help rule and minimal uses of ashes, so this time we let our hair down and just let ourselves use whatever we needed. If you'd like to see the blind run where everything was done solo, let me know. Now, FromSoft achievements tend to have a focus on collecting items and beating the must-fight bosses of each particular game. So we had a lot to grab and a lot to kill, a veritable whistle-stop tour of FromSoft's latest work. Combining that with the open world element meant that we had to be prepared to come back later when it came to challenges that we weren't quite ready for. With the quick production of a cheeky roadmap and the experience of the PS4 Platinum under our belts, we began our journey. And if you like this new format, make sure to subscribe for more. We had a weekend of intense problem solving ahead of us, but thanks to Brilliant, we were comfortably prepared to face any challenge, Elden Ring or not. If you've ever used daily language learning apps, you'll already be a pro at Brilliant, which takes the format of daily bite-sized lessons and applies it to STEM subjects. Lessons feel practical and hands-on, which is really important for someone like me, and maybe someone like you, who learns by doing. Featuring thousands of fully interactive lessons in maths, data, AI, and programming, Brilliant is here to keep you sharp on the daily and provide you with a horde of new skills, whilst fostering critical thinking ability. I know it sounds silly, but Brilliant's greatest advantage has been just how easily it's replaced doom scrolling. I no longer lie in bed in the morning flicking between Twitter, Reddit, and Instagram, just mindlessly scrolling trash. I wake up and do some fun lessons that tickle the gaming part of my brain, and I find it makes me much more ready to get up and start the day. New content is added all the time. In this world of growing AI technology, I definitely recommend the lesson on how LLMs work. It shows you how language models build their vocab and choose what they want to communicate. It goes into a ton of detail on how models trained on vastly different things, from song lyrics to cookbooks, respond differently to different stimuli, and how their output is what it is. It's really interesting to understand these systems from the other side. Try everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days by visiting brilliant.org/merkkk or by clicking the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring today's video. To earn every achievement in Elden Ring quickly and with minimal friction, I decided that we would need to commit a sin most of the more basement-dwelling fans would consider to be heresy. We had to grab something called the Mimic Tear, an item that would allow us to create an in-fight clone of ourselves to fight alongside us in select battles. This would help us immensely towards the end of the game, when the boss power would begin to creep beyond one-shot kill levels and boss aggression soared to astronomical astronomical heights. The Mimic Tear is an item that was nerfed pretty hard and on multiple occasions, but remains one of the most overpowered abilities in the game. Only it's found about halfway through Elden Ring, maybe a third of the way through depending on your routing, so while this was our midpoint goal, it yet remained one on the horizon. I know, I am a pioneer of Elden Ring strategy, what can I say? Coming off the back of a COVID infection that wiped me out for several weeks, I started the stream, grabbed a Strepsil and selected the Samurai archetype. Utterly groundbreaking. I'm probably the first person in the world to even consider that as an option. Don't fact check me. With the Samurai, we intended to make use of the recently nerfed Uchikatana. We're all getting nerfed today, folks. A weapon that was laughably OP in the original release of Elden Ring due to its tendency to apply bleed, a status effect that decimates most of the biggest enemies in the game. Bleed charges with every hit, and once you hit a certain threshold, it's applied in one big splodge of damage, giving us a huge edge against most enemies. There was even a point where applying bleed during a boss's phase change caused them to instantly die. It's a shame that didn't fly under the radar. We could have made some good use of that. I spent a good while forging our trophy-claiming avatar in the character creator. That'll do. And then we cracked on. My self-imposed challenge of sitting through a single game's introductory cutscene was our first bomb of the session. Worry not, friends, it would certainly not be our last. Most FromSoft opening bosses are fights that you are supposed to either lose or run away from, and this upcoming spaghetti abomination is no exception. So I thought, let's just skip this whole segment by throwing ourselves into the abyss before the fight even begins. Well, it turns out you can't do that. But a few minutes later, we hopped, tripped, and flumped out into the world of Elden Ring, skating into some subterranean tutorial area. First things first, for any FromSoft run, gasp in your surroundings for about 4 seconds before diving into the menus for a solid 20 minutes of equipment rearrangement, with a side of how do I two-hand my weapon again, since shields are for babies who don't face their problems head on. After a grueling uphill battle against secret boss Soldier of Godric, we were finally in the clear, the brisk winds of Limegrave hitting our sun-starved faces. Yes folks, the hardest was behind us, it was all downhill from here. Kicking up a bit of momentum, I detailed our plan of attack, referring to the roadmap I had hastily drafted the day before. Our first port of call was to get a crafting kit, which I hastily purchased while spitting out my annoyance at the introduction of pop-up tutorials that kinda wrecked the flow of this game, making you feel like you're getting yanked back by a shepherd's crook every time you finally feel like you're getting the hang of moving around. This game really fell through the floor when it introduced tutorials. Turn that off. Ranni, a character we would need to speak to promptly if we wanted to make some progress with some of these quests, hadn't spawned yet, so we rushed up the hill to the bonfire at the base of Storm Hill, or the Grace, or whatever it's called. Resting at this Grace in particular allows you to meet a character that Smowtown would probably know the name of. Hey girl. But quite frankly, I have long since forgotten. Queen Pinkeye here is lore important, but for our purposes she's basically a mate who shows up occasionally to speak in riddles and help us light some fires. She gives us access to our steed, Torrent, who I raced back down the hill with to meet the newly spawned Ranni, whose hat I've had my eye on right from the beginning. Ranni is a bit of a fan favourite, especially for Rule 34 purposes. Canonically, she's flat as a board, being a puppet made of wood, but I always see her portrayed with the biggest tits I've ever seen. Each fan art is more generous than the last. Not like that's an issue, it's just bizarre that I've never seen a fan art of Ranni where she has anything less than G-cup. What was I talking about? Sorry, I got a bit lost there. Having finished her speech and no longer wishing to be perceived, Ranni turned into confetti, a skill all women possess that allows us to escape meetings that otherwise could be emails. God, women. That was a joke. Watching our Smurfette companion assume the form of pocket dust, we snapped Torrent back to life and embarked on horseback to our first stop, the chicken leg. Down here and pick up an XP chicken leg. And we're gonna go use it to kill Grail. No, I have no idea what I was talking about at this point. The context left my mind as soon as it left my mouth, but our goal here was to essentially power level early to make these first few hours significantly easier. This setup wasn't perfect, our shit was still due to be pushed in, but it would serve as our best possible start for a weekend platinum trophy. Yeah, we get in the platinum weekend, we gotta pick and choose what our morals are. One discarded chicken leg with a side of accidentally emoting later, we were ready to find Grail. Our cross-country marathon began. We were barely a third of the way through our trek when I heard one very familiar voice. Oh, who is this? A jolly friendly warrior jar sporting the same first name as my baby brother? Gosh, I hope I don't get way too emotionally attached to him and end up having to kill him later. It's probably fine. One smack on the arse loud enough to break the sound barrier and I made this man's acquaintance. With a quick pit stop for the essential item mixed flask of wondrous physique at some dilapidated old church, we hopped into a teleporter tucked away at the back of the property and wound up right near Grail, in the furthest reaches of the poison desert Khalid. Fun fact, but I fucking hate these gargoyles. Okay, let's leave this gargoyle alone because these are easily the worst enemies, probably in FromSoft history. Everybody's like, oh, the knights at Iron Keep. The knights at Iron Keep have a consistent... Our quest for Grail's approximate location neared its end, but the closer I came to my destination, the more trouble I seemed to find. It wasn't until the 30-minute mark that we found her, and it was time to farm. Bye, Grail. Now thoroughly plugged with many souls, we slumped down at the nearby Grace for an unexpected surprise. Oh, don't talk to me. Although I was disgruntled to be thrust into a series of dialogue I'd need to crunch through without accidentally clicking the wrong thing, Miss Pastel Pink offered to take me to the Round Table Hold. And who could say no to that face, or more specifically, that achievement? Arriving at the Round Table Hold is, all things considered, an arbitrary milestone in any FromSoft journey, but hey, so is beating the Northern Asylum demon, so we'll take what we get. Here, we leveled up and prepared our character for a rush through Limgrave, the Sophia River, and the Weeping Peninsula. And while we're here, should we introduce ourselves to our band of companions, the myriad of unforgettable characters set to accompany us on this journey, meet and barter with each vendor, assess our objectives, and come to terms with the stakes of our mission? Okay, now let's leave. Fuck no. Back to Limgrave. Now, those of you who finish FromSoft games on the reg will be aware that every FromSoft game will ask you to collect shit. Be it shields, rings, magic spells, and while this seems arbitrary, it's done with the intention of encouraging you to visit as many places and fight as many bosses as possible, since these are often tucked away in unexpected places. And Elden Ring was no exception. Rushing up the steps of Fort Faroth, a little underleveled despite my time spent with Grail, we overcame our challenge through the power of sheer positive vibes. Soulcon. Ah! Oh god. Woo! Nothing a spry attitude and a pair of quick feet couldn't fix. Here, we grabbed the first half of a medallion we'd need to access a later part of the map, and Radagon's Saw Seal, an item we would not be using. And a smack on the arse too, I suppose, you know, win some, lose some. Stuff lost, left abandoned at Fort Faroth, we cut our losses and made off for Fort Gale, snatching a map from a little runebear-infested copse along the way. Horrible creatures. Distracted by the riddles of my moderators who were trying to hint at the next steps of my journey, I was pulled asunder. Saboteurs. Once I'd spent a good 5 minutes figuring out how to co-op on this humble game, we summoned our first assistant. Since members of chat had been absolutely desperate to join in on the fun and had been cruelly rejected during my first playthrough, I made the rare but benevolent gesture of opening up the floor to summons. Everyone was welcome, although it was Genghis Cannot who answered the call. Our next stop saw us battling a mighty lion within the bowels of Fort Gale. Sort of. anyway. It's more of a dog man with stringy white hair and a weird muscly look that screams of tasteful but eerie nudity. With the claws collected, an item we would need for one of the collection trophies, we headed down to the Weeping Peninsula via the stranded Graveyard Grace. Here we had a few bits and pieces to collect. Most notably, our next trophy waited for us within the walls of Castle Morn. Employing my tried and true eyes down and run strategy for this area, we saw a speedy transition to our goal. I hate having to pretend to look busy. There's a lot of meetings at my current job, and my current job has a lot of process as well. Oh god. I think we've talked about it, but I'm pretty sure it's 10 hours. The company that... oh god. Oops, I died. It might be an Ash. I've accidentally just written Grafted Blade Greatsword twice! Our next achievement sat behind boss Leonine Misbegotten, another one of those bosses who's probably 90% lore and actually will give you a run for your money on a first playthrough. He hits fast and hard, introducing us to the general playstyle of most of the Elden Ring bosses. 40 minutes after first arriving at the Round Table Hold, we had our next trophy. With Leonine and his grafted blade greatsword in the bag, we moved on to Tombswood Catacombs, where we fought a Bloodborne boss, the Cemetery Shade, for the Lutal the Headless tier. Easy games for babies and men. Rushing back up to Limgrave, we grabbed Irina's letter, headed up to Fort Hate for the second half of the medallion, and rushed to Stormhill to set up a checkpoint that we could teleport to when we became ready to challenge our first mandatory story boss, Margit. First, we just needed to do one thing, and by one thing, I mean we needed to dive deep below the crust of the earth into a long-lost subterranean city, light the fires to awaken the ancient guardian within, and then quickly kill it. Welcome to the city of Nokron, accessed via a fairly unassuming elevator in one random corner of Limgrave. Visually, this place is awesome. A city of eternal night patrolled by loyal, ghostly guards with heat-seeking arrows, but my time here wasn't so much enjoyed as it was endured. Thankfully, I learned that you are invulnerable to damage and stagger during the torch lighting animation, and exploited this truth for as long as I was allowed to, scampering around from plinth to plinth until the ancestor spirit was roused and ready to meet me out front of the chippy for our brawl. The ancestor spirit felt like a controversial boss fight. It's slow and lumbering, it skips all over the room, it leaps off camera to suddenly clap down on your head, and you spend a lot of time just sprinting after it like some kind of ghostly caddy. Irrelevant, however, since this fight drew into keen awareness that, despite my levels, neither my healing items nor my weapon would be ready for such a battle. Ow! Dickhead. Roughly 3 attempts later, we bailed and skipped back down to the peninsula I'd previously assumed we were finished with. Look who's weeping now, it seemed to say, and bolted through the churches along the coast looking for sacred tears to upgrade our healing items with. From here, we skipped through the Limgrave tunnels looking for upgrade materials for our weapon, whacked our Uchigatana up a few notches, and then returned to the Ancestor Spirit for one final smackdown. 58 minutes from our last trophy, we had achievement number 3. Got him! Riding the high of that victory, we rushed off to Margit, a fight I actually don't love, but still first tried in 3 minutes anyway, because we came to win and I wouldn't give this boomer the satisfaction. Suck my balls, Margit. It's alright, Margit. 3 minutes is quite long for some people. With the death of the fell omen himself, our time in Limgrave and beyond was finished for now. Now began the era of Stormvale Castle, a stretch of time that really was all of 25 minutes long. A castle by any other name in any other game would be an endgame area, or DLC I guess, thanks Crash Bandicoot, but Stormvale is a pretty tight transitional area between Limgrave and our next major segment, the lakes. That's not to suggest it's easy easy either. You can spend a lot of time here, clawing for items and battling beasts and exploring every nook and cranny, but we were on blitzkrieg mode by this point, staggering forwards through Stormvale Castle like my dad with his car keys after 6 drinks. I'm just joking, Colin would never. Still, we were only treading water, just barely keeping our character and weapon leveled in tandem with the creeping difficulty. You skip a lot when you rush through Elden Ring, and we were here to nail nothing but the essentials. And our next hurdle was Shardbearer Godric, the next mandatory story boss waiting for us on the other side of Stormvale. I say next big problem, but certified bottom Godric is no real problem. Not for a pro like me anyway. In fact, he's an easy first try for most players, with a second phase that's like 10 times easier than the first one. He's the easiest part of Stormvale Castle, so let's get to him. Godric really should do like triple this damage. I mean, I might die. Oh. You know what, we'll take what we can get. 16 minutes after introducing Margit to the back of my hand, our 4th trophy was in the bag. With the second major boss of the game firmly under our belt already, we grabbed a grape from downstairs, a little crunchy snack for later, and ventured out to the Divine Tower. Elden Ring is full of Divine Towers, lore-important areas that I, a bink-bonk Uchigatani user, never bothered to understand. This particular one is one of the easiest to access unless you count the 24/7 in-house security team. Scaling the tower, we reached the top and restored Godric's rune, a sentence I just kind of said out loud, but I don't understand the meaning of. Ah well, we got another one. I thought that this was open legs. I thought it was a giant that had fallen backwards with its legs open, and the Great Rune was like between its legs. I didn't realise it was fingers. With another simple trophy out of the way, we backtracked through Stormvale to see my favourite bit of environmental world building in Elden Ring, the face. There's nothing inherently important to us about the face, but it's my favourite physical landmark in the game. The framing of the face and the little stone arch, the fog that parts as you encounter it for the first time, the eerie, silent stillness of its dank, muddy grove, a moment in time that raises more questions than it could ever hope to answer. Perfection. I love the face. Having now done everything we could at this point, we moved on to the Liurnia of the Lakes. Liurnia is simultaneously the largest and flattest section of the Elden Ring map, comprised of webs of sprawling lakes and forests, dotted with settlements and secrets, and headed by the Academy of Raya Lucaria, where our final area boss was waiting. A gorgeous area all in all, and a hive of scum and villainy, since it's where all the invaders hang out. Low-key, I love the excitement of being invaded on a FromSoft game, and I don't much care if they play the bongos on my corpse after slapping me down with the briskest meta in the game. It's all in good fun. I hated that they let you block PvP on Dark Souls 3. Our first invader saw himself out when he accidentally tripped and ate shit off the side of a cliff, and we moved on. First order of business. Grab the map. Next, we headed to the Purified Ruins to grab the Two Fingers heirloom and our second grape. After spending far too long trying to scale a wall I could probably have far easily walked around, I made a quick stop at the Malefactor's jail to, I had hoped, show Aiden, Thief of Fire, a piece of my mind. I tried to, anyway. Still, Tenacious is my middle name, a source of resentful tension with my mother for making such a mystifying decision, and a few attempts later, Aiden was a done. You are welcome, everyone. You imprisoned this criminal, I came by and beat the crumbs out of him. Pleasure's all mine. Aiden's death provided us with an incantation we'd need for one of those pesky collection trophies. You know, we love slow burn success. Next stop was the Revenger's Shack, a name that keeps no secrets, where we fought off against a bloke called Edgar for the final grape. A grape that became a fine gift for Hieta, or Idrina, or whatever her name is. It's probably her birthday or something. Our character seems to get a kick out of bullying the disabled, a demographic that have apparently had it far too easy for far too long, because upon the receipt of the third grape, we laughingly admit that they're not grapes, they're eyeballs, and we've been feeding them to her knowingly this entire time. Punked. Just a bit of birthday fun, Hieta. You can stop being sick now. Despite the size of Liurnia of the Lakes, there's not all that much to be done here for our purposes, so it was time to climb to the top of the Royal Academy and face off against Rennala, the location's boss. George R. R. Martin's like, I love two things in this world. Incest and twincest. Picking a fight with a completely optional dragon, I grabbed the key to the academy and beelined it. If you've got a friend who believes that Elden Ring should be savoured in all of its forms, send them this video and let them watch me completely rinse through the academy without stopping for even a second. It welcomed me into its stony ancient bosom with open arms, and I clotheslined it with zero regrets, like a pensioner on the bus. No item descriptions read, no shortcuts found, no side paths explored, just pure, unadulterated progress. Make your biggest FromSoft fan friends very miserable indeed. Compared to the wide expanse of the lakes, the academy is refreshingly vertically oriented in a way that I love. It's got this beautiful way of making you feel small, like a caterpillar desperately scaling the Empire State Building. If you're ever looking for more ways to feel insignificant against the backdrop of our universe, this is one I recommend. Enemies are meaty and in huge numbers, particularly the Burger Kings who gleefully await you at the top. Typically, I'd sneak past them, but our resident Genghis had other ideas. Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. I couldn't hack the invader though, who one-shot me without breaking a sweat. Thanks, man. No matter though, our ascent continued unabated, well, a bit abated, and soon we stumbled into the boss room of the Red Wolf of Radahn, an entity I'm sure has no lore connotations whatsoever. And, you know, a bit of bear spray never did me wrong. 51 minutes after the Great Rune Trophy, we earned our seventh achievement of the playthrough? You know what, I've never been so rewarded for beating a dog to death. With the Red Wolf of Radahn firmly sat, we shimmied into what felt like an out-of-bounds area to grab the icon of Radahn, we killed a knight, and we scurried up to Renala's boss room. Not 7 minutes after our victory against the Red Wolf had we found Renala and shown her our full moon, and she was another notch on our murderous bedpost. Thank you very much, Renala. That was quick. I'll take that. That was beautiful. God, she didn't even get a minute, did she? With the Academy of Raya Lucaria complete, it was time to move on. Along the way, we encountered Hieta again. Recovering pretty well from her prank, she got a good sense of humour, and this woman has the audacity to ask for another slightly different kind of grape? Have we learned nothing, Hieta? Still, your wish is my command, Hetty, and I know exactly where to find you one of them, because I've played this game before. You're in good hands. Give me 10 minutes, we'll be right back. Turns out that 10 minutes was a bit of a optimistic stretch on my part, considering my incredible lack of preparation to go on such a quest for her. The grape could be found up on some hilltop church, easily located being that it sits at the base of Sauron's fucking tower and is guarded by some bloke named Vike. Doing what Sam and Frodo couldn't, we slapped the eye out of the sky personally, no ring required, and rushed Vike, who promptly set us home in a body bag. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. You know what? Let's go level up a bit. Time for a quick mine. Each mine in Elden Ring contains different levels of crafting items, relating to the levels we are expected to have our weapons at per area. This gorgeous electric blue mine, guarded by a dude named a Crystallian, had what we needed, and soon we were sporting a +8 Uchigatana. Vike still wasn't having it. Ow. But I beat him the way I win all of my real life fights, by wearing him down. Bored of seeing my face, Vike eventually just fell on his own sword, and I swanned about the place like we hadn't just gone 15-1, hardest boss in the game. Hieta loved her grape. No worries, boo, just don't ask for another one, I don't have it in me. So, what's next? Okay, right, so now we need handy mana. We need a Royal Knight Loretta, and a weapon called the Sword of Night and Flame. Carrion Manor is tucked away in the north of the lakes, near Ranni's place actually, and contains some of the grossest enemies in the game. They're little spidery hands that scurry about, jump on your head from above, and burst out of the earth when you walk over them. Luckily, the path to the manor is pretty short, and you're out of the Garden of Fingers before you can say, I'm having those weird dreams again, up on the walls, sprinting past ghostly knights. Soon we had the Sword of Night and Flame, and then we were smashing a woman woman named Loretta into a fine paste. She is a horseback boss, which means you basically need to spend most of the fight tucked up against her arse while she swings a spear back into your face. Surprisingly challenging she is, our Loretta. Loretta is rough and tumble, but a fair and fun fight. Soon enough she was dead, earning another trophy just over an hour after our last one. Hey, well done. Me. Haha! Loretta's death opened the door to the Three Sisters, a section of the map containing Ranni's house, like all the Elden Ring characters just chilling out on an Animal Crossing island. Pelting up the elevator, we met the world's favourite waifu. I explained my cat's sleeping habits, while this blue-hatted babe explained to me her quest. Yeah, we've heard it all before. Downstairs is the dog boy, another confusing husbando from the world of Elden Ring, and after a conversation with both, we headed off for the Church of Plague to complete a quest I didn't quite realise I should probably come back to do later with a few more levels in the bag. Khalid. A fan favourite, a huge rotting desert whose design I adore, but practically kinda hate because of the pain of the terrain and the savage creatures and the ease of getting lost out here and like 10 other reasons. We snatched up a map while discussing the physics of Ranni's fan-drawn tits and charged into Celia Gateway to Gowry's shack. See folks, we needed to embark on another side quest that would span the length of this game. The Millicent side quest. Millicent being a young woman whose rot, an in-universe plague, needs to be cured. And it starts here. We don't need it for the 100%, but it would help me see a couple of extra cool cutscenes without locking us into one specific ending from this early in the game, and I like the cutscenes. Gowry requests a special needle, which for us is hidden behind a particular swamp-dredged boss who I don't really enjoy fighting. Commander Niall Horan guards the nail down in the swamp of Aeonia, which we grab with quite some difficulty. Shaquille O'Neal has a ton of blokes that join the fight just to make it even worse, and they are always the reason I die. I fought fire with fire and summoned my own bloke from Nokron, who was a bit useful but not really, and mainly served as a distraction while I tried to sack tap Niall. Yeah. Tried to. We weren't doing enough damage, so we bailed with the aim to come back later. This absolutely was not a fight we could win. As we sprinted to our next objective, I outlined our plan. So we should be at the lift of Biggest Dickus in a bit. Let's go via Magma Worm Makar. We saved him till last time, but I think we should just get him out of the way this time. Oh, we have to kill Elmer of the Briar. I hate him. Now, this was the first stream in a series of 4, and I'd had a long day at work, so we decided to end it for now on a fun note, by heading down to Magma Worm Makar and giving him a piece of our mind. Fuck you, Magma Worm Makar. We stuck candles in the onions. Oh, that's very respectable. Aww, he's an egg. Easy enough. After a nice 8 hours of rest, we returned bright and early to embark on the next few steps of our journey. Because we're all about getting the work done early and well, we rushed to the mine first thing to grab unlimited +3 and +4 smithing stones, and Sephi came by to check that the run was running. Oh wait, oh, hi Sephi. Oh look! Hello. As we made our way to the mine, I set out our plan for the day. So the first thing we need to do today is kind of just level our weapon. At the moment, because obviously we're rushing through the game and we're getting a lot of help during bosses, we're underpowered for what we need to do, which isn't the end of the world because I don't think there's any challenge we have to deal with that we have to do solo. But like, if we're doing like no damage to bosses and we're dying fast, then obviously that's a big problem. We leveled up and bullied a woman named Fia out of the Round Table Hold, since she would allow us to access a later boss fight against Lich Dragon Fortisax, and also she was kind of bringing down the vibe a bit. Lich Dragon is but a blip on the horizon so far, one of those bosses that's probably accessible at this point, but in a why would you want to kind of way, and instead we busied ourselves by calling on Elmer of the Briar, a boss I don't really like. I procrastinated on this duty by taking another pass at Niall, but the immediate immediacy and viciousness of his retaliation sent me back to the nearest stake of Marika on my arse, and we moved on. There are other ways to procrastinate, I suppose. I stopped by the Radahn festival, but I was a bit early. Everybody was still setting up the chairs, so we ducked out and stopped by the Golden Lineage Everjail to fight a version of Shardbearer Godric that should have been. Failing to find much success here, I skipped over to the Sainted Hero's grave, shimmying past a particularly ornery Black Knife assassin for an item that we'd need for one of the collect all trophies. The concept here is cool. Enemies need to be lured into the light before they can be damaged, just they all apply bleed and they attack in groups, so I got slapped around like a beach ball. This place proved a struggle too. Woo boy. Who knew rushing through Elden Ring would be hard, but I nabbed a few friends from Twitch chat and it made for an easier time, especially for them. Haha! Sorry to keep you waiting. The ancient hero of Zamor waited for us at the end of this dungeon, presumably the titular sainted hero. Probably should call him the painted hero since we decked him, get it? And the ancient dragon knight Kristoff ashes were ours. Yes, it was 70 minutes into this stream before we saw our first win of the day, and I took the opportunity to pump our Uchigatana up to plus 14 before fighting Elima. There's one entrance to the shaded castle, but keen to avoid running into Elima as I was, like seeing your ex in the bread aisle, I took the long way round, checking for alternative routes. Blustering over the threshold, me and the boys staggered upwards through the castle to fight Elima, grabbing the Valkyrie prosthetic in the process. I promise I need it. Sitting on my hand just isn't cutting it anymore. Elima thought that was pretty cringe apparently and turned me to dust on the welcome mat. Still, we have options. Introducing Genghis Might, the war turtle to Genghis Khan's Squirtle. Elima finally handed over the stuff I left at his house in a little cardboard box, and I walked out of the shaded castle the proud owner of Maria's executioner's sword and that really comfy hoodie I thought I'd lost and he promised me he hadn't seen. 13 real life hours after our last trophy and 90 minutes into our second stream of the weekend, we claimed our next trophy. Renewed with vigour and the sparkling reassurance of jolly cooperation, Genghis and I went knocking on Big Shaq's door for that precious unalloyed gold needle. Sorry, I'm allergic to my own success. What followed was an incumbent amount of back and forth between Gowry and Millicent, prosthetics abound. It wouldn't pay off for a while, but it's good to get these conversations off the ground early. Excellent. With my wife admin complete, we moved on to our next step of the Platinum run. The Godskin Apostle. It went alright. Hey. Oh god. We do love a bit of bleed. Ah! I love that you can see his little boxes when he stretches out like a snake. I hate you, Godskin Apostle. Platinum them and you'll get the prestige of platinuming them, but the plats are really easy. Yeah, see you in a bit, sweetie. Have a nice lunch. I mean, oh, shit. Yeah, I was like, if I roll back there, I will die. I will die. Millicent spoke to us afterwards, briefly, but I wasn't listening because I didn't care. Another step of her questline complete, no doubt, and we returned to the Radahn Festival to see if the party had started yet. The Radahn Festival and associated boss fight are probably one of the best new mechanics implemented by FromSoft, and makes for one of the most memorable fights in the series. This fight is designed to be done on horseback, and while you can beat him solo, you can also summon many compatriots. Mechanically, this entitles you to basically unlimited summons and resummons. All story characters can be infinitely resummoned until the boss fight is over, resulting in this exhilarating for Frodo charge and a fantastic fight overall. Unfortunately, if you summon the boys, you can't access your horse, so we flat-footed it to Radahn, then spent 5 minutes trying to cram toothpicks up his jeb end. Easy trophy. As if intimidated by my wealth of incredible skill, Elden Ring promptly crashed. Thankfully, nothing was lost. Reloading, we skipped into the war-dead catacombs for the Radahn soldier ashes and the ashes of Redmane Knight Ogre, like stopping at the shops for a packet of crisps and a Diet Coke. Victory over Radahn comes at a cost, since it changes the environment so much, opening an abyssal crater on the surface of the planet. A bunch of our graces were lost, but we needed to get into that crater, so we teleported to the closest one and made desperate haste to our next stop, Nokron and the Mimic tier. Nokron is manageable, and my whole job is to... Orisa, I can play pretty well, and I know that I can play Orisa pretty well because she's the only character that I frequently get told to kill myself. Hey, I'm trying to make my pasta. The Mimic tier is an interesting fight with a premise I quite enjoy. The Mimic mimics you, if you can believe such a stretch of logic, but it specifically mimics what you wear when you summon it. This means that you strip down to your briefs and put your weapons away, and you basically summon a very aggressive nude. I forgot how to do it properly though, and I put my stuff on too fast again, so my Mimic was as prepared for this fight as I was. 36 minutes after our inspirational victory over Radahn, we had our next trophy. Hey, we got him. With our trump card under our belt, we pressed on through Nokron, ready for anything. So from here we need the Regal Ancestor Spirit, we need the Ancestral Woods Mimic Tier Ashes and the Valiant Gargoyles. We need the Finger Slayer Blade. Our next port of call was the Regal Ancestor Spirit, like the Ancestor Spirit we fought previously, except apparently far more regal. I have no idea why this line of bosses was chosen for their own set of achievements, but whatever, at least they're fun. The Regal Spirit can heal, which makes for a bit of a piss take at points, but the fight is largely the same, and the trophy is free. You always overeat after a workout and get a food coma and pass out. I don't do that, no. Our pilgrimage to the centre of this hostile earth wasn't over. With this victory under our belt, we rushed deep into the bowels of Noxtella, maybe a bit too deep. But our next battle was to be fought against the Valiant Gargoyles, a boss you're well within your right to have a miserable time against. Our run was no holds barred, however, so we brought in our own reinforcements, and I really cannot emphasize how much I hate these guys in particular. Oh nice, got him. Elden Ring does that Elden thing where it will randomly hide a major area behind a completely innocuous piece of set dressing, and the coffin in the back of the Gargoyles boss area is no exception. It's pretty hard to avoid spoilers about Elden Ring, so I knew of this coffin on my first playthrough, and for the life of me I have no idea how I would manage to find the area it's even in without a finger pointed directly at it. We landed in the ant place, and we didn't need to be here yet, so we grabbed the grace and we fucked off. We'll be back after a few more hard-earned levels, but it's nice to have the grace at least. I sprinted back to Ranni like a desperate simp, taking the carrion inverted statue in the process. It doesn't look like much now, but it's actually a key that we'll need later. How quaint. Skittering past our favourite warrior jar, I realised I lacked the tools to get him unstuck this time. Very aware that Tibbs was trying to start shit, I rushed onto the carrion study hall and used our inverted statue. Success. My favourite thing about this, My favourite thing about this 100%, let's slow it down a bit, approach this mess with a degree of caution. These sounds are terrifying, they get me every time as well. Stop! I'm trying to make her go off the edge, but I don't think she will. Jesus. Oh, thank God. Right, let's go. Let's go before anything worse happens. Oh, no. Whew. Oh! I shouldn't be alive. That's much better. With my far more business-appropriate attitude, we skipped down through the study hall and out back past the bike sheds to the Divine Tower, where we found the Stargazer heirloom and a curse mark of death. Very cool. I'm sure there's no lore stuff going on here whatsoever. As if realising I was having too much fun out on the surface in the fresh air, my own roadmap that I wrote myself sent me plunging back down below into the Ainsel River well. I pinged a bunch of ants and scaled some palace ruins, scampering past mini versions of some of my least favourite bosses in the game. Past this weird skeletal roof bug was the Big Lady Room, a colossal cavern of majesty, the crucible of 1,000 questions, one of the most compelling areas in Elden Ring, home to its most underwhelming boss quite easily. We neared the end of our second, far less productive stream of the weekend with a final trophy, earned for killing the Dragonkin soldier of Nokron. See, we were nearing the end of this stream because despite how I may be coming across in this video, I was starting to tilt. Our abundant lack of progress was bothering me. Despite the quick win against the Dragonkin, hey, that rhymed, should have named the trophy that, my remaining patience was more limited than I realised. Thankfully, we were able to push some questlines along before my fuse completely evaporated. Ranni was gone from her weird apartment, so we hopped back to Ainsel via Renna's Rise, where we found Ranni, but as a doll. How many jars will this woman find herself in, I wonder? Still, she offered a quick chat by the bonfire and I went on my way, following her orders like the desperate little puppy dog I am. One jaunt through the all-palace ruins later and we put down the baleful shadow on Doll Ranni's request. Well, he rocked my shit a few times first, I won't deny that. You know what they say? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, you can't fool me again. I don't know. With no time left in my schedule to entertain the whims of furries, we scrambled through Nokron to our next objective. Soon enough, the moon of Nokron was ours. Returning to Renala's room in Raya Lucaria, we whacked open a chest in the back for the Dark Moon ring, and then embarked on a journey to fight my very, very least favourite boss in the game. In terms of the roadmap, we are almost 2/3 through, but I guess it's just a case of the difficulty now getting very, very, very steep. But we can carry on to the Lake of Rot, and we will have to get over it by pure trial and error, because I don't think I have any scarlet polyps, or whatever they're called. I wonder what this place smells like, because a bloke lived here for ages, didn't he? Was it the Scarlet God? No. Yeah. Scarlet Rock God or something. Did he make it smell, or did he hate the smell? Astel sits deep below the earth beyond an area known as the Swamp of Rot, a place as lovely as it sounds, I assure you. Astel blocks our access to the Moonlight Altar, an area of the map we'd need to visit to collect a bunch of shit and set up one of the 3 required endings for the Platinum. As much as I would love to leave Astel to it, we couldn't. One small relief at least was the reassurance that we don't actually need anything from the Swamp of Rot. No items, no bosses, no bullshit. The kindest part of this 100% for sure. Consequently, we skipped through, grabbed a grace nearby, and moved on to Astel. The issue I have with Astel is that I'm a melee user with a strictly melee build, and in this game of many bosses, we also have bosses catered to a wide spectrum of different approaches. My friends who play int build characters have no trouble with Astel. They merely stand at the opposite end of the room and throw wet paper towels at each other until one of them is dead. As a melee user, Astel takes up more than the whole screen, and it's very difficult to know which part of him is currently whipping through the air towards me at any one moment. We just hate each other. I'm so sorry. It is a very cool tale. Most of the time, you just kind of, like, you have to be quite far away from it. I'll see you soon, Yetha. Thanks for being here. No, oh no. It's not that bad. He's definitely shit. And I'm the streamer, so. I love getting stabbed from off screen by the monster's own tail. After 8 deaths, I decided to take a break from this subterranean nightmare and return later, climbing out of this godforsaken hole back the way I came, and instead just rushing over to Volcano Manor, an area in the top left segment of Elden Ring's map, just to have something else to focus on. Taking a pause to spec my weapon into bleed, we threw caution to the wind and sprinted up this mountain. No time to fight the myriad of enemies that swarm it like ants, and especially not the full-grown falling star beast that waited for us at the top. Not a fucking chance, pal. Yeah, I'm still not sure how I feel about Malenia, because I think the issue is that I'm not good at fighting Malenia, so there's always going to be that kind of, like, resentment there. So it's like, if I say, you know, she's not a good boss, am I just salty? Probably. Wow, Kirsty, can your takes get any hotter? I think it's kind of silly that you have to craft stuff to co-op. Because everybody says, like, oh, like, you just find it lying around, it's really easy, like, you basically don't ever have to worry about having enough of them. And if it's like, if I never have to worry about having enough of them, then why do I have to craft them? Arriving on site, I snagged the Grace at Volcano Manor, then took a quick break. Pasta bake and a little walk awaited me, and who am I to keep them waiting? 2 hours of lying on the sofa later, staring at the ceiling, we were fresh and ready to get back into it. Our time here was short-lived, all things considered. Stopping by to grab the key for the Airbnb room upstairs, I introduced myself quickly to the Volcano family and got my list of chores to complete before checkout, before rushing out to upgrade the weapon a bit more. We smacked up some Crystallians, grabbed some +6 stones from the Lake of Rot, and rushed to the Round Table Hold to upgrade our shit to +17. And with that, we were ready for Astel again. Like, he probably deserves some love. Oh, thank God. We got him! Absolutely we. Thank you for the help. 3 real-time hours after our last trophy, we bested Astel, Natural Born of the Void, and claimed our next trophy. With this major hurdle out of the way, we were free to conclude Ranni's questline insofar as setting up her ending, which is when we'd see her plan play out and see our trophy. We had another major problem up at the Moonlight Altar, a problem you may know as Alecto, leader of the Black Knife Assassins, who sat me on her knife and spun me like kebab meat on my first playthrough. We wouldn't fight her yet, but rest assured we would need to come back. In the meantime, we avoided trouble. That's a dragon. And rushed to Chilona's Rise, the site of more necessary collectibles. Still, one doesn't merely walk into Chilona's Rise. There's a riddle that needs to be solved. Well, as close to a riddle as FromSoft are ever going to inflict on us. Directed to kill 3 wise beasts, we pranced across the landscape in search of 3 ghostly turtles to shoot with whichever level 1 piece of shit crossbow I had on me. 1, 2, and 3, and climbed to the top of Chilona for our next spell, Ranni's Dark Moon. Nice. Saves us coming back later. Sorry about the turtles though. From the top to the bottom, our next port of call lay below the Cathedral of Manus Celeste. I'd love to go around this game and just kill all the dragons. Not because I wish... Oh dear. Yes, maybe not like that, Kirsty. Take 2, and we discovered what it was like to be married, a rare experience for any Souls fan. Wow, a real girl. My very first wife. Stopping briefly to thank me, or something, I was too busy talking to chat to listen, Ranni left me with the best wedding gift ever, the Dark Moon Greatsword, and a rice cooker. Wow, I wonder if she likes me. With the bewildering excitement of a potent post-conjugal rush, I skipped back to the Volcano Manor with the intentions of a far more permanent stay. There's an illusory wall here that you can just find if you're the kind of person who likes to smack every wall in a Souls game, and behind it lies the real meat and potatoes of Volcano Manor. So let's dig in. Okay, so there's no collectibles here, just bosses. Off you go. Oh. Shuggle's like like the team dog. You know, he just goes barking after anything. When the person sorry. Oh god. Guys, I've flown too close to the sun. Honey, it's time for your 9 AM virgin crunching. Shackle's got a torch. Ow! Let's get him. Fight back. Bizarre how easily missable this place is, although I feel like you could say that about most places in Elden Ring. Still, Volcano Manor feels almost vestigial in its execution, just this random place that feels inserted for the sake of having a lava-themed level, like when Overcooked started making you serve burritos in hell. At the end of this long, difficult road, we encountered a boss called the Godskin Noble, the much rounder version of our previously encountered Godskin boss, and they're both shits, so I'm never happy to see either. I can only be grateful that they haven't been paired up and presented to me as a late game mandatory boss fight. Wait, why are you looking at me like that? Oh yeah, we killed him. Ding ding. With yet another trophy in the bag, we skipped on through Volcano Manor to a very missable but very fun boss. Rykard sits deep below Volcano Manor, this miserable sack of shit that let a big snake eat him for reasons I couldn't possibly understand. That's boy dinner. He's weird, broadly speaking, and I would leave him well alone if he wasn't squatting on one of the main boss trophies. For some reason, you get given a Storm Ruler for this fight, a concept that felt kinda silly, but whatever, treat yourself, FromSoft, especially when we consider how much health he has and how much AoE damage he passively produces in his second phase. I like the amount of health he has, to be fair. His attacks are well telegraphed and fun to dodge. He's got moves that account for summons, so you can't just all wail on him, and yeah, generally I like this fight. I'd just get up and move if he sat next to me on the bus. Next trophy down, 17 minutes later. All we had left to grab here was some shit from a place called Hermit's Village, an area of Volcano Manor that took me 10 times the time to find as it did to loot. I took 2 assistants along with me to kill the mini-boss we were absurdly over-leveled for, and they still both died. Humiliation. And in front of Warrior Jar Alex? For shame. Here I killed demi-human Queen Maggie, grabbed the Comet Azure spell, and then left for the Waypoint Ruins. Here I encountered Mad Pumpkinhead, a boss I really should have done something about at a lower level, and rushed past him to a woman named Selin, named as such because she's selling sorceries? Get it? Anyway, yeah, sorry, she has a quest. Selin's quest took us to a crystal cave and a spell we needed, Stars of Ruin. With that in hand, we just ghosted her. No need to finish her quest since we got what we needed. Sucker. With this done, we had only a few more areas to explore. The Icy North, a crumbling fortress in the sky, and the capital itself, which waited patiently for us at the base of the Erd Tree. Can't miss it. We approached the capital on foot since horses aren't allowed in co-op, stopping to shit all over the draconic tree sentinel that served as this golden city's overzealous bouncer. Sorry, I left my ID at home, but you can have one of these. Woof! What a city. With a whole new area to knock through, we got to work. For a sim to go into a pool, they have to want to swim in the pool, not travel through the pool. So like a pool isn't considered like a path for them. So I would trick the AI into not going into my space. My sim on that lived out, because you had to get like magic bucks. Melinda Gobbai met us at the door with some spiel, but she clearly has no concept of trophy completion rates, and we ditched her with the grace. See you in the chaos ending, Mandy. Lanedale offers us a few familiar faces, or hands I suppose, which we encountered as we rushed through the sewers. It's easy to get lost here, I noted as we got lost here, skimming around and unlocking useless shortcuts we'd never need. In a gentle introduction to what was about to become a habit of making you fight the same boss multiple times, we were pitched against a bloke named Godfrey. This guy hits like a sewer on a hot day. Godfrey is one of those don't get hit bosses where he swings a hammer the size of 15 anvils over his head multiple times in a single combo and you're expected to simply disregard it. Takes a bit of practice, but if you're precise and take time to learn his moveset, he's a rewarding fight that has a later payoff. If you don't like him, sorry, but you will have to fight him again. That's the thing about Elden Ring. Oh! Ooh-wee! Trophy! Nimbly avoiding the quick hands of a nearby assassin, I grabbed the grace here so that we could grab it for a later fight, not realising that you actually lose this grace as part of the story. Ah well, better to over-prepare than under-prepare, as I always say, snagging myself the Blessing of the Erd Tree and the only missable weapon in the 100%, the Bolt of Gransax, we set our sights to more exciting things. I had a crack at Morgott and maybe could have beaten him with a bit of elbow grease, but felt like we may as well come back later since we'd be upgrading our weapons soon enough. Plus I accidentally summoned Belinda Beeswax and she brings fuck all to the table, so she died and then I just had to fight him with increased health. Having completely forgotten to use my Mimic tier at all, and well aware that the game is only going to get harder, we took a quick pause to forage for the materials required to upgrade it, a quest that took us deep below the crust of the earth. Returning, I decided to do the emo brother first, since he sat in the way of some prep required for the cool ending, so we rushed downstairs to the blood altar to rip his My Chemical Romance posters off the wall and call him a pussy. It was easier said than done. Oh fuck. So I believe the way that... Oh! Quick! The first thing we do is lock ourselves into an animation. Ow! Oh no! Oh! Ah! Consider him wedgied. Another achievement in the bag. Thank you for the help check. As above, so below. With 3 solid trophies obtained in something like 50 minutes, I took 5 to chat up Belinda Bongeye in the smoking area, leveled up our character, and popped back to the subway. I don't know if anyone mentioned this to Mog, but the altar in his bedroom isn't actually real, it's illusory, and leaning on it funny will make you fall through like some Scooby-Doo prop. Running through these liminal corridors has the same vibe as trying to locate a toilet in the back of an independent coffee shop, complete with the Uchigatana keychain. We just needed to get to the bottom. What's your most proudest plat? Okay. This one might have to take some practice. Oh god. Oh, this always makes me jump. Here we go. Yeah, I think you kept me focused on a goal so much that I didn't tilt. So, very... Huh, not too hard actually. You should have seen that on my blind run. That was like a 2-hour thing for me. Down here we stripped off and grabbed the Frenzied Flame, basically shunning the current order and pledging ourselves to cleansing the world with fire, a goal that Molly Moon here takes issue with. I did get burned by a giant hand, yeah. Ah, she comes to call me an idiot, doesn't she? God, she's so assertive, isn't she? Girl boss! Picking this up so early would typically lock us out of the other 2 endings. If you've played Bloodborne, taking the Frenzied Flame right now is like the equivalent of eating 3 umbilical cords at the one Reborn. Like, a lot to have to potentially replay if we were planning to save scum this ending. However, taking the Frenzied Flame offered the opportunity to see some unique cutscenes, and I love going out of my way for a moderate difference in a single line of text or 10-second transitional cutscene, so I committed now. This is why we're doing the Millicent questline. She will give us an item that allows us to remove the Frenzied Flame when it comes time to grab all 3 endings, eliminating our need to replay the game another time. At least Hieta is happy for me, I thought, trying not to draw attention to the fact that she was audibly coming in front of me. We grabbed a Grace down here in case we needed to zip back later, and left while I explained the plan. Alright, so now we need to leave via the rolled route. So we will go to Avenue Balcony. I think there's a tree thing here, but we'll just pretend we haven't seen it. So we've got Heretical Rise, Founding Reign of Stars, Second Bonfire, Speak to Millicent, Rivers of Blood, which we might not need with the Uchi and the Mimic tier. Fire Giant. Oh no. Don't know why I did that. The icy northern lands were coming up next, an area I wasn't especially excited for. Icy lands are never really that fun in games. Slippery floors, low visibility, and a general lack of visual intrigue tends to make these areas quite boring, and they are always final level areas, meaning that they have the added misery of being difficult. And no one wants that. Annoyingly, there was a lot to do here. I grabbed a checkpoint in Zamor Ruins in case we needed it later, then sprinted across one of the coolest video game bridges. Maybe this area isn't so bad after all. Here we encountered our favourite redhead, sorry Daphne, stopped by Heretical Rise for the Founding Reign of Stars spell, and encountered my favourite fantasy trope, huge chain you use as a bridge. Rushing up past the Forest of Fallen Giants, nice, we made a stop for the weapon we would be upgrading to. While the Uchigatana has gotten us this far, it's time to take the next step. It was time for Rivers of Blood. All we needed to do was kill this one little NPC, oh my god, he's a freak. Mr. Rivers of Blood lay me out more than once, forcing me to use every cell in my brain to devise an effective plan. Thankfully, we have infinite tries, and he only has 1. All we had to do was wait for him to get bored, and the Rivers of Blood belonged to us. Nice, now onto the towering boss of these northern realms, the Fire Giant. The world's largest ginge. Oh, he doesn't look too big. Oh my god, he's just really far away. We summoned the Kool-Aid Man for more emotional support than anything else, and brought the Fire Giant down a peg in a single try. His first phase is excellent fun. His second phase is slightly less so because of how erratic and weird he becomes, but he's thankfully not too tricky. In the bag. Skipping up the hill to the giant cup that I have fallen into more than once, we set the Erdtree alight by ourselves, earning front row seats to an elusive cutscene. This is why we have to do the Millicent questline, so I could see this. Was it worth it? I try not to ask these questions because I'm scared of what my answer will be. Fuck it, we ball. Time for the endgame. Waking up in the crumbling ruins of Farum Azula, we felt this was a great opportunity to pause the stream for the day. Taking an opportunity to level and buff our weapons, there was just one final thing on our to-do list before we decided to jet off to our last stop, Commander Niall and the Eclipse Hotel. Shaquille was waiting for us here for a legendary rematch that he would thankfully be bringing less reinforcements to, and this time our inevitable victory promised a trophy, so you know I had to do it to him. Scampering up the front steps like a reverse Cinderella, we dodged every enemy on the map just to get to the Shotel, which we collected with ease. Now, just to grab Genghis and we could bring the beatdown back to this old man who clearly does not know when to leave things alone. If you saw my blind run of Elden Ring on stream, you'll know that I soloed every boss until Niall at least, and this fight was so tough that my heartbeat was audible on the microphone. I thought games were supposed to be relaxing. Returning for a rematch more fateful than this PS5 Niall would ever understand, we treated ourselves to the combat assistance of Genghis and snagged our last trophy of day 2. The Shekel carry, as always. We began day 3 back in Apple Crumble Fazula, and this time we bought a little shopping list. See, we had dragons to ignore and graces to collect. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, we descended through the ruins. If Final Destination has taught me anything, it's that you cannot ever evade death. This way? Oh wow, that just took stamina. I guess if it takes enough stamina to fill the stamina bar... Your dues must always be paid with interest. Pausing to snag the 9 we need, that's you, I'm the 1. This is a self-deprecating attempt to flirt, you may now laugh. I rushed through to grab as many graces as I could, so I'd have a good chunk of checkpoints to return to later to fight the boss. Only, oops. Yes, I overstepped quite literally and pelted face first into one of the community's least favourite bosses of the game, the Godskin duo. Personally, I actually don't mind them too much. They're pretty weak to bleed and I've never been especially stuck here, but I get it. They're a double boss in the same spirit as Ornstein and Smaug. One little and fast, one big and slow, but they lacked the charm of the original duo. Probably because combat is generally sped up in Elden Ring, so you spend a lot of time just sprinting away from little and fast and big and fast, with very little room to breathe. Also, their ranged projectiles tend to completely ignore the cover you are provided with in the arena, a detail of this fight that vastly takes the piss. Despite accidentally encountering this boss while sprinting through this area on a wing and a prayer, I did pretty well. Well, we can come back later. In the meantime, it was time for Khalid cleanup. It felt a waste to have spent all that time upgrading my Mimic and never actually using her. Welcome to the team, miss. Your first task is the Crucible Knight and the Malbegotten Warrior, Elden Ring's very own Beauty and the Beast. With the happy couple smited, we nabbed the Ruins Greatsword, then stopped by the Cathedral of Dragon Communion for Grail's Roar. Sick. Khalid is done. Now to finally return to the Deeproot Depths, an area that we actually already twice visited, and it's finally now time to explore. This is a part of the game I feel is not only easy to miss, but easy to underestimate. It's got some cool visuals, but on the whole feels like a transitional area to me. Like a place where a bunch of other places end up, but doesn't offer that much itself. With a quick hello from Sephi, we decided to grab what we needed from Deeproot Depths here and now and tick this area off for good. This included the spell Elden Stars, which we claimed for a surprisingly early collect all trophy. I was actually pretty surprised at how easy this was, since these collection trophies usually require a lot of effort and backtracking. Still, we won't look a gift horse in the mouth. With our first trophy of the stream locked and loaded, in the bag, we rushed to the base of the Erdtree, the location of the OG face, to find a woman called Fia. There's a queue, apparently, and I go 3 rounds with 3 squealing simps before Fia will even look at me. She's worried that I'm there to kill her, and I'm not. I'm here to kill a big dragon only she can help me access. As a member of chat asked the big questions, I stopped for a quick cuddle with Fia and a quick fight with an ancient eternal creature of red lightning. Still, I have no idea why our character would want to kill Lich Dragon Fortisax, unless she, of course, is also motivated by PlayStation trophies. That's food for thought. With most of our cleanup complete, it was time to move on to the endgame, including the Forbidden Lands. Only we needed another medallion to do that, and we only had half of it. The first half we'd snagged from Castle Sol, but the second was now available in the village of Albanorix, back in the Liurnia of the Lakes. And since we're already out and about, we may as well. Here we convened with Bruce Forsyth, who handed me the second half of the Haligtree medallion. For free! A rare treat. Thanks, guy. With another round of cleanup done, we returned to Farum Crumble Azula and to the sweet Eiffel Tower formation of my favourite Godskin duo. Only I felt fair to bring my own companions along. Call us the Foreskin duo. Our rematch was legendary. My favourite part of the battle was this bloke that spawned in right as we beat the boss, meaning he landed and then promptly turned to dust. Wrong time, wrong place, my guy. Try again next time. Trophy! Now, up next was my least favourite boss fight in the game against a character I very rarely see mentioned, Malekith, and I want to delay that misery as long as possible. We've got this dragon here. I'll simply ignore him. Speaking briefly to recusant Bernard allows us to challenge him here now in Crumbletown, and we did so with zest, grabbing the Old Lord's talisman. What have you done to him? Alas, that was kind of all we could do to stay the onslaught of misery up ahead. Despite my attempts to procrastinate by flirting with the bouncer out front for free entry, we were unfortunately victorious and shuffled awkwardly into the arena. Malekith doesn't have a crazy amount of health, but he does do a crazy amount of damage. His first phase is aggressive but reasonably straightforward, but his second phase is just pure hateful. I don't like it. Not only does he do crushing damage, applying a status effect that causes your health to continuously drain faster than any toxic after a successful hit, but he also hits about 5 times per combo, draining your stamina and refusing you any opportunity to counter. We returned more prepared, only to lose our trump card, Genghis, at the first hurdle. Oh shit. Our other summon, Sheldon, died too, and I spent the rest of the fight desperately trying just to get away from Malekith. A little distracted by the controversial discussions of chat, who wished to explore the concepts presented by the medium, I died. And again. But not again. Less than 5 deaths against my least favourite boss in Elden Ring, and we had our next trophy. Good riddance. Hey! We did it! Killing Malekith triggers a huge physical change in the overworld of Elden Ring, most specifically Leyndell, which ends up coated in a sea of sand. But we don't have time for any of that because we have another old man to go and teach a late but painful lesson. Crumbling Farum Azula is home to my least favourite and most favourite bosses in Elden Ring, practically next door neighbours. Dragonlord Placidusax sits at the base of Faram, tucked away somewhere many of us would never think to look, hidden outside time, waiting for the return of his god. Too bad, because we found him first. Dragonlord Placidusax delivers one of the most intensely atmospheric battles in Elden Ring at the centre of an immense coliseum. He wants very much to be left alone, so it only makes sense that he is desperately aggressive when we chase him this far, threatening an end to an age he doesn't realise ended tens of thousands of years ago. Best phase change, best phases, best moveset, best history, best OST, Placidusax, you cannot miss. I embarked upon this mighty battle with 2 companions, loyal Genghis, Knight of the Times Table, and Glass Cannon, our caster. One by one they fell, but I remain. Michelangelo, Leonardo, Da Vinci, all dead. I remain. Taking the life of my favourite rotten lizard less than 15 minutes after pulverising Malekith the Unwelcome, I bid adieu to the exhilarating rush of blood I never felt I had enough time with, and we took our biscuit to the Forbidden Lands. These lands are accessed via the Grand Lift of Rold. The Forbidden Lands are just as snowy as the Northern Realms, but thrice as treacherous, and it's rare I drop a thrice, so you know I mean it. Harkening back to that one fan favourite level from Dark Souls 2, the consecrated snowfield is a plain full of sudden sudden drops and hyper-aggressive enemies that kept torpedoing my horse out from underneath me, blanketed by a zero visibility blizzard. Since there's not a lot we need here, we decided to get it sorted nice and early. This meant travelling to the Cave of the Forlorn, where the final armament for the legendary Armaments trophy was awaiting us. With the light of friendship hoisted as his banner and the spicy aroma of blood-tinged excrement in his John Lewis briefs, Genghis Might led us into battle. The misbegotten crusader calls upon the general playstyle of old Leonine, if you remember him. Crazy speed, crazy damage, but only 3 HP. And with that wasp sting of a build, he almost ended our battle the moment I walked through the front door. Still, he was dead before I could even finish typing this explanation of how he works, and with that we snagged his sword and the legendary Armaments trophy. With another success trailing behind us, we looked at what lay ahead. Elden Ring's most dangerous redhead, and I don't fuck with gingers. Instead, we doubled back, returning to face the golden lineage Evergaol I'd noped out of all those hours ago. This time, we didn't break a sweat, humiliating goddess in a matter of seconds and claiming the Godfrey icon. Trying our luck, we returned to Alecto, hearts full of optimism. Whoops, that's the warm-up. Like dabbling with strength builds, and I remember he said something like, yep, second warm-up, yeah, third warm-up, oh, fourth warm-up, fifth warm-up, you know what, you get the idea. And so did I, because I left. I'd rather face the Halig tree than this woman. And so we moved on to the town of Skill Issue, Ordina, which features the closest thing to a proper puzzle in Elden Ring, if we aren't counting that game of Pokemon Snap they had us played down by the Moonlight Altar. In Ordina we needed to light the candles held by these wax ladies, a fun little romp that took us across the city, above and below, pursued infinitely by invisible assassins. Wonderbar. The Albinorics in here are fucking awful, by the way. Okay, there's one. Okay, there's two. Rob. Ah! Invisible enemies! Oh! Ah. Oh! A seal was broken in town. With the ladies lit, we zipped off to the Halig tree, and it went well. Right, let's rush through this. Somebody say feet. Hello, boys. Oh, what is that? Nope, nope, not Scarlet Rot. Fuck. We got Scarlet Rot. I don't care for the Halig tree. With my britches full of scarlet rot, we grabbed the next grace, a mercifully close one, and spent about 20 minutes getting lost in the sprawling and highly toxic branches of the Halig tree. It's a windy level full of little rooms and balconies and ladders and plinths, and they all look the same to me. I have no major observations to make. Either way, an old school disco banger is always welcome. I've gone the wrong way. Whee! Too big. With that claimed, we had opened up our shortcut to the boss for an easy return journey. Not that we'd need it, because Genghis had evolved. It's nice to meet Loretta in the flesh after getting spanked by her so many times in Carrion Manor. She was much easier this time around, earning us our next achievement in just a single attempt. Beautiful. Loretta, Knight of the Halig Tree. Woo! Home run now. 9 trophies left to go, and 3 of those are endings, so it's all downhill from here, and downhill in the most literal sense. Descending the Halig tree is a delicate process. Here we met Millicent, outwitted a gazebo knight, snatched Cleanrot Knight Finley, snatched Marika's Saw Seal, and met God, but the journey raged on. As we came closer and closer to our final battle with Melania, we came closer and closer to the end of Millicent's questline. This required us to fight an ulcerated tree spirit, an enemy I take great pains to avoid at the best of times. Fuck's sake. This guy slapped me around a tiny area full of rot-inflicting poison a good few times, but once I got a handle on only using rivers of blood when he staggered, I had a far easier time with it. With this spirit dead, we were able to be the summonee for once, specifically for Sister Millicent, who is having trouble with the other sisters of the Halig tree. couldn't be me. Unfortunately, Millicent is as shit as I am and she died very quickly. So when we returned on our next attempt, we stuck close and basically fought back to back, earning an easy win in what was a cruel 1v4. Despite your best efforts, Millicent dies here, either because you exhaust her dialogue and she passes naturally, or because you fall on her when climbing from the ledge above. Since she has 1 HP, she dies in 1 hit here, and you'll need to do an entirely fresh playthrough just to get her needle. Brilliant work, Millicent. Reloading the area earned us an item called the Unalloyed Gold Needle, which again, we don't need for the achievements, but rather this allows us to remove the Frenzied Flame after we get that ending, meaning we could easily save scum the remaining 2. Next, we grabbed the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman and ripped ass down to Malenia. Malenia? I barely know her. Malenia is just some little side character optional fight. She's not especially famous or anything, so I'll just skip this bit for you. Don't worry, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not gonna play Animal Crossing because it doesn't look like my thing. I'm not okay. But then they'll just whoop! You know what? I'll be right back. Get up, Malenia. Get up. Fight back. Oh, I'm out of juice. I'm joking. Oh dear, Birch. Oh, he's alright. Ow. Fuck. Beat her up. God, it's nice.
The mark of a true lord.
Oh, you're wearing her outfit. It looks stunning. You look beautiful. I look at that bit of thigh as well. That boss fight had me on strings when I tried to solo it during my first playthrough. Once upon a time, I spent hours with that woman, tilting so hard all the bones in my body spontaneously shattered and turned to soup. It felt great to be able to be an absolute shithead to this woman during our platinum run. With her dead, I returned our previously obtained Miquella's Needle to Malenia's Flower and received a Dragon Somber Smithing Stone, basically a Titanite slab for those of you coming from Dark Souls, as a posthumous thanks. Malenia, why did you fight me? We could have just talked. I'd give you the needle back. With this, we rushed to achieve our final upgrade level on Rivers of Blood and got a fat trophy to boot. With that, we had only 1 legendary talisman left to claim. Skipping back to the start of the Forbidden Lands, we pelted up the elevator, rushed into the capital outskirts, and down a big lift into the Ashen capital. And you say I don't go the extra mile. There's an ulcerated tree spirit here, but no one has time for that, so we rushed past, grabbed Erdtree's Favour +2, and bailed as our next trophy dinged on screen. Our next port of call is another major, but majorly optional, boss, Mog the Groomer. Yes, that is his official name, no, don't Google it. The secret entrance to Mog's secret castle is located below the Forbidden Lands. There are a bunch of caves nearby you might accidentally blunder into, one of them containing yet another Astal fight, only scaled for Endgame, so you can fucking bet we had to be precise with our exploration, because I'm not doing that again. Getting invaded by the Sanguine Noble was an indicator that we were in the right place. Once he was slapped down, we teleported to Mogwyn Palace, a gorgeous level down below the sands of Radahn, probably why there's so much blood everywhere. Jesus Christ, time to ignore that. So I was reading about Miquella because I was really interested in how he works, and apparently he is like a really compelling person. Like, his power and his ability, besides Eternal Youth, is that people who meet him like immediately fall in like a really strange adoration love with him, which I think is like a really clever power when you think about it in some ways, because it means that they just constantly want to protect him, and so he is looked after and he's kind of like adored. But in other ways it's really bad because it means that he randomly gets kidnapped by old men. Stopping for a quick rest, we rushed up to kick an old man to death. Uh-oh. How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, Mog? I don't care if Miquella is an immortal being trapped in the body of a child. You're still going on the list. After getting wrecked by this man so many times on our first playthrough, it was a pleasure to have the means to bully him as a team on this one. Fantastic. Alright, easy stuff done. Back to Alecto. First try. And with that we earned the trophy for acquiring all legendary Ashen remains. Only bosses and endings left to go. Getting back to Leyndell, capital of Ash, we found all our graces had been extinguished and needed to be grabbed again. No worries, I watched Genghis gouge a man's eyes out here. It was pretty fun. Grabbing the penultimate grace, we rushed into the final set of encounters and sprinted face first into Hoarah, a man who administers AoEs with the same cautious anxiety you'll catch me scrubbing my hands with Hanny Sanny before a sit-down meal. This battle saw the death of Genghis and then myself, and then my game crashed. Oh. My game just crashed, I think. No worries, grabbing the boys, we tried again with great success. Finally, the end was in sight. Not only that, it was right in front of us. As a three, we embarked on our final battle. Me, Sheldon, and Genghis done. Radahn is aggressive and seemed to really hate Genghis in particular, giving me and Shelly Boy a great opportunity to wail on him until Genghis expired. And then me, so never mind. After 4 attempts we left Radahn in the dust and he gave way to the Elden Beast, God slain. Time for our endings and a bit of save scumming. I minimised the game so as not to accidentally reveal any system information while making my cloud save and returned to grab our first ending, the Lord of Frenzied Flame ending. Confusing? Why would you ask me that?
To deliver you what is yours. Destined death.
I don't get it. Now came ending 2, the Age of Stars. To be able to obtain this ending, we needed to remove the frenzied flame we'd been given all those hours ago by the 3 fingers, and for that we needed the needle we got from the Millicent questline, a labour that was finally paying off. To do this, we needed to take the needle to the arena we fought Placidusax in. Seriously, I have no idea who figured this out, and rest at the grace with it to see the relevant option. After a quick administration of this dodgy medicine, we were frenzied flame free and ready to play. With that, we returned to the centre of the map for our Ranni ending and we got married. Take me to dinner first next time, ready? And now for the final ending, linking the flame, continuing the cycle. This one is pretty straightforward. Whip out the frenzy, run back to the tree, whip the world back into shape for another loping, staggered return to order. And so we ushered in the Age of the Pot. Oh, Elden Ring. And with that, the Platinum Trophy, and 100% for now, was ours. For the second time, Elden Ring had been thwarted. An alright game all in all. It's not my favourite FromSoft title, but it's a good bit of fun, with some good bits and some bad bits. Just generally, there wasn't any particular parts I loved. It was all fine. So, let's take a look at the stats. In total, we died 115 times. Our most dangerous area was the Haligtree, which saw 11 deaths, followed by the Altus Plateau and the underground areas, which tied for 5 deaths each. Our most dangerous boss was our dear friend Alecto, who killed us 9 times, followed by Commander O'Neill with 7 deaths, and then Astel, Natural Born of the Void, and the Godskin Apostle, who died for 6 deaths each. In our 16-hour run, this left us at roughly 7 deaths per hour, so 1 every 10 minutes or so. We had our game crash twice, but we also climbed 2 of the 6 divine towers. You know, life gives you lemons. We summoned 85 individual helpers, most of which were in Khalid, where we summoned every possible helper for the Radahn festival. Together, we beat 50 bosses. I tried to figure out which proportion of them were mandatory, but it was very difficult and very confusing, so I gave up. Throughout the course of recording this video, I mispronounced 5 terms. Limgrave as Limegrave, the Siofra River as the Sophia River, Commander O'Neill as Commander O'Neill, which ruined my Shaquille O'Neal joke and I still didn't even notice, Nokron as Nokrom, and the Misbegotten Warrior as the Malbegotten Warrior. If you noticed any other mispronunciations, drop them in the comments and I'll send you a Melania Footlight as your reward. Overall, I give my work here a D. We got the 100% cleanly and in good time, but we died way too much and relied wholeheartedly on summons throughout the weekend. But we did first try Melania, so, you know.